Wouldn't you know it? While I was editing my last demo review video, Steam Next Fest 2021 drops and now I have to go and do another one. First world problems, am I right? So let's get stuck into 4 of my favorite demos I played over the past week. Let's start simple and get physical, Hyperviolent even. Developed by Terminist Arcade, Hyperviolent is a retro-style first-person shooter whose gritty and industrial setting, tense atmosphere, and gory combat recall Dark Forces, but mostly System Shock. You come to in some sci-fi installation, and you soon discover that your surroundings are overrun with zombies and other creatures. You'll scour the environments for bullets, data pads, keys, and weapons, anything you can use to get the upper hand on the increasingly fantastical enemies you encounter. You'll perform light hacking too as you find passwords and various data pads that also provide diary excerpts lamenting the lurid state of affairs. There's not much else here story-wise, but I think the developers are purposely playing to audience expectations of space horror like Dead Space or Arcane's Prey, and I'm totally okay with that. You'll start off with a baton, but quickly get upgraded to a shock baton that electrocutes zombies. The guns you pick up are a classic mix: pistol, an attractively designed and powerful shotgun, a machine gun, a unique weapon called a butcher that packs a nice punch, and a heavy-duty minigun variant that you'll get later on to defeat the boss monster. The main selling point of combat is that you can dual wield at all times, in any combination of melee and firearms except the minigun, and the interface to swap these out at a moment's notice is workable, if a little hard to see. Levels are well laid out. They're not too complex, but they do encourage committing your environment to memory so you can plan your routes and remember where you need to backtrack to in order to use the keycard or password you just found. There's one hidden objective that's a bit of a stretch to find, but the rest propelled me forward at a consistent pace. So, what could use improvement? Well, for starters, the shotgun spread is very finicky. Sometimes it'll obliterate enemies in one shot, and other times it takes upwards of 5 or 6 point-blank shots to kill, and I've witnessed several other players have this problem too. The screen also turns very red when taking damage, and making it really hard to see your health bar to know when to heal, but also making it very hard to see your enemies to fire back. Other than that though, the action-focused System Shock vibes are right up my alley. Hyperviolent was the most surprising find of the whole Steam Next Fest, as I'd not heard a word about it, but I found myself enjoying it quite a bit. Dread Delusion by lovely Hellplace. This is the Morrowind spiritual sequel I never thought I'd get. Featuring an enchanting art style, an ambient soundtrack, and all the classic tenets of a good open-world RPG, this one looks like the real deal. Now, true to RPG rubrics, you'll start out as a prisoner in your cell, put there by an authoritarian regime known as the Apostatic Union. They offer you freedom if you can capture an escaped fugitive, and so you're off, exploring and finding side content as you go. Beautifully rendered in that warpy PS1 style, the world is vast and lets you go almost anywhere you can see. Unique creatures and plants litter the landscape, like these unusual goblins or these sassy flying skeletons who offer you tips and tricks. The humorous banter you engage in with NPCs really grounds you in this world as a distinct and original work. For instance, an innkeeper clarifies that his pub, the Wobbly Noggin, actually got its name for the drunkenness of its patrons a while back, and not for the unmissable giant skull that's lodged into the front of the building. Casualty of the God War a while ago. It's like, really? Is that the reason? It's such an improbable, silly, charming, and self-aware detail to me. Another seemingly mundane side quest has you deliver quilts, quote-unquote, to a shady fence, and once you deliver the package, something monstrous inside peeps out, but he stuffs it back quickly, assures you it's just quilts. The lightheartedness of these encounters juxtaposes with the underlying tones of cosmic horror, and it's complemented by the stark beauty of its interconnected floating island structure, a compelling yet perilous world that seems to hover over oblivion. The rest of the game is standard enough for an RPG. You'll equip weapons and armor and quaff potions to replenish your health and magic, and collect fauna for what I would assume are their alchemical properties. The real draw is that classic Bethesda-style march across the landscape littered with unusual and often funny characters with unique side quests, or just some treasure hunting or monster fighting to engage in at your leisure. and you're accompanied by a moving and lush ambient soundscape that, while a little repetitive, is so unique and transportive, you'll often start to feel yourself slipping into the world and not wanting to leave. I sure didn't, and I'm really looking forward to going back soon.
Lazarus?
Yes? Who is this?
It's me, Ludmilla, your sister. Listen, you have to come home.
Ludmilla? What happened?
It's Mom. She's dead.
What?
Well, you know me, I love my horror games, and especially so when they look this good. If you're like me and can't quite put your finger on where you've seen this art style before, it's because the same artist and writer from Grey Dawn is working on this game too. The orthodox imagery and assets are gorgeous, and the game's premise is fantastical and intriguing. Set in what appears to be Romania, right as the year 2000 hits, you are Lazarus, whose mother has recently committed suicide. You're returning home for the first time since it happened to visit your sister Ludmilla at her apartment. Letters lying around the apartment reveal the family's backstory. Lazarus's father died and it sent his mother into a frenzy, and she practiced her Christian faith with almost fetishistic fervor, slowly losing her faculties and abusing pills. And when she finally killed herself, Ludmilla started taking pills as well.
Hello?
When you arrive, she calls and says she's out at Mother's grave.
Thank you.
While you're taking this phone call, an apparition behind you looks on, looking strangely like your sister. Something's not right, and something is in this apartment with you and makes its presence known.
What the hell is this thing?
The plot gets really crazy really fast, like some Bioshock or Singularity-style parallel dimension stuff with Lovecraftian monsters and more. Is any of it real, or is it just the imagination of your protagonist's fracturing mind? I hesitate to say much more about the story, so you can have fun with it yourself. So let's transition to how the game actually plays. You'll do your standard clicking on items to collect them and inserting them in various places to solve light puzzles, pick up phones to initiate conversations, all the walking simulator stuff you kind of normally do in these types of games. What's a step above in this particular demo is how nice everything looks, sounds, and feels. Now what I hope doesn't go unsung is the orchestral soundtrack. It never tries too hard to show off and maintains tension incredibly well. The game goes from tense and weird to fantastic and crazy at one point, and the music never feels like it's changing genres to accompany this tonal shift. That's a really big deal from a sound perspective. Overall, the game has heart and a commitment to its ostensibly weird and creative ideas, and I'm excited to see where the mystery takes us come release time.
Help! Help! Lazarus, help!
The last demo of the day I want to look at is Kingdom of the Dead by Dirigo Games. It has this wonderful pen and ink aesthetic similar to Return of the Obra Dinn, and it looks just like an Edgar Allan Poe story that's come to life. You play as Agent Chamberlain, a kind of supernatural task force agent for the government. Like the Thief series, the higher the difficulty you choose, the more objectives you're asked to complete, which is a nice touch. You make your way out to a manor overrun by horrible beasties to free some prisoners and retrieve some info. As you descend into the manor's depths, you're instantly greeted by sword-wielding zombies who emerge from the inky blackness, the whites of their eyes gazing eerily at you and giving you visibility as to their whereabouts, but also the fucking creeps. You'll see a good variety of monsters in addition to these as well, like some gun-wielding zombies, cacodemon-style floating heads, these little wolf creatures, 60s style sci-fi monsters, and my favorite, these incredibly unnerving hooded figures who emit this thrumming noise as they lurch towards you or throw energy balls from afar. There's also a cool worm boss that antagonizes you over the course of the demo. The focus on pulpy monsters is one of the biggest draws for me, and so far I'm very satisfied with the roster of creeps. Weapon variety is solid too, and adequately captures the look and feel of classic turn-of-the-century weapons. You'll first get this weird talking claymore that's also something of your sidekick and chimes in with helpful information from time to time. Pistol is great for headshots, and I was pleased with how easy it was to line them up and get that satisfying pop over and over again. The shotgun's powerful, but quite slow to reload, which is a good trade-off, and it's indispensable against the boss monster and the ferocious harpies. The lever-action rifle is a solid step up in the range category, providing good damage at range and a cool reloading sound. The chain gun feels good to shoot and deals a lot of damage. Dynamite's plentiful, easy to use, very effective. and has this really cool stylized fire effect whenever it goes off. What players may miss is that the weapons all have alternate fire modes. You can fan the pistol's hammer back for rapid fire, shoot both shotgun barrels at once, or my favorite, AoE attack when the sword will clear a room. Very cool stuff. The 80s adjacent soundtrack shouldn't feel so right here, oh, but it do, building tension or exploding in beat-driven battle music appropriately. It's super listenable yet unnerving, sounding like nothing else in the crowded faux retro gaming market, and that's a really big part of my enjoyment. So, what didn't work for me? Well, player movement's a little sluggish and hard to strafe sometimes, especially during the boss battles. Sound effects are a little underwhelming, needing a little bit more oomph. Shotgun and lever action gun models, especially, just look way too thin and weightless in the player's hands. You could use some touch-ups to feel more powerful and convincing. I also didn't like how weirdly big and out of place the colored item drops look when they pop up on screen. Lastly, there are also some weird frame rate drops here and there. Overall, Kingdom of the Dead's got a lot going for it. It's captivating to look at, has great gothic atmosphere, and it's pretty fun to play. The pulp horror aesthetic is really doing it for me, so I can't wait to take the fight to the underworld once this Joker finally releases. Alright everyone, well that's all for me today. I'm still working on Ultima Underworld: The Stygian Abyss, and we'll have a review up sooner rather than later, so keep an ear to the ground for the next installment on my series on influential first-person games. Well, until next time, thanks again for watching.